Hello, everyone. I'm Joe the Jet G, and today we're going to be talking about if the New York Jets want to take a gamble, no pun intended, on quarterback Brendon Sorsby, the quarterback from Texas Tech, or who is currently at Texas Tech. He transferred from Cincinnati to Texas Tech. So it's a very interesting story that has been making the rounds these past couple of days. Um, to those who do not know, Uh, Brendon Sorsby has recently been checked in um to help his gambling addiction. So he was checked in um for some help to get some help for his gambling addiction, and it's starting to make the rounds on what is going to happen to this young man. Is he going to be suspended from the NCAA? Is he, you know, is he going to the supplemental draft? Is he not going to play football again? That type of thing. That last one was a little bit drastic. I don't think that last one's going to happen. But there's just a lot of uncertainty that's going on with this guy right now, unfortunately, you know, due to gambling addiction. And the problem is right now, no one knows what this is going to entail for this guy's future. But people are saying a lot of people are saying, a lot of Jets content creators are saying, could the Jets use a supplemental draft pick on Brendon Sorsby? So the way the supplemental draft works is you bet a pick on a player. So for example, if I wanted, a certain player out of college, but first he's got to sign up for the supplemental draft. If there's a player that missed the whole entire NFL draft process, but then changed his mind and wanted to go to the NFL, for some reason, or for dodge legal issues, something like that, they would sign up for the supplemental draft. And usually a team with the higher pick gets to bet a draft pick on a certain player. It could be a certain round, it could be a whatever round you want, it could be, you know, whatever round you're talking about. It could be round one, a round two, round three, round four pick you can put, but a team can counter. Let's just say I put down, you know, put down a third round pick down for Brendon Sorsby. Another team can come up and say, hey, you know, we're gonna place a second round or a first round on this guy. That team gets the player. So that team gets the player due to the round, due to them upping you towards the round. But if I wanted to counter that, let's just say the team that said wanted to get the first round, they wanted to give a first round to counter my third round. If I say, oh, I'll bring in my first round, and it's the higher first round pick compared to the other team's first round pick, then I get the player. So it's not as it's kind of like it's mostly like bidding. It's basically what it is. That's what sort of the supplemental draft is. It's not really like how it usually is when it comes to the draft, where you know you're picking on top of other teams and you get the chance to select them, and then you pass them up. The pick is in. This all stuff that the NFL draft is known for. It's kind of a different sort of. It's a different sort of uh thing. It's like an auction, if if I do say so. Um, but what do I think about the player, Brendon Sorsby? I thought Brendon Sorsby was very, very solid at his time at Cincinnati before he transferred to Texas Tech. I thought he was very, very solid, and he was a guy that I thought the Jets should have keep an eye on, honestly. And I think the whole NFL world was kind of keeping an eye on going into this season because he had a very, very good season with Cincinnati, and now he was going to a better team in Texas Tech, and now with this whole gambling thing, it's not a guarantee that he's going to be at Texas Tech now. So now, what? I mean, what should the Jets sacrifice? What should the Jets sacrifice for this guy if they really want him? Honestly, personally, I would give up a third. Personally, um, because I feel like it's too risky. It's too risky to just throw in a first and call it a day, and it's even more risky to throw in a second and call it a day. Those 2 rounds are very, very, very important. I mean, you can make the case round 3 is also important, but at the same time, you know, Brendon Sorsby is an early projection um, to be a good player at Texas Tech this year for the Red Raiders. How many times have we seen this throughout the years when it comes to the draft process where we've seen quarterbacks that are highly touted? Um, they end up having bad seasons and falling off a cliff. Specifically last year, when it came to the NFL draft, Garrett Nussmeier first, you know, Garrett Nussmeier, for example, he was a guy that everyone had mocked, possibly as a guy to look at, possibly as a first round prospect. Year later, he's a seventh round pick. I mean, it just goes to show. I mean, Drew Aller, same thing. Here's a guy that was supposed to be a day one guy. Um, a day one guy. He had the measurables, had a pretty short season with him getting hurt and him not playing well while being on the field. He's a third round pick now. Cade Klubnik, for example. If for all the people that want to bring up Jet quarterbacks. Cade Klubnik, for example, he was a guy that was also supposed to be part of that first round conversation. Fell to the fourth round due to bad play, due to whatever went on in Clemson. So to say people want to give up a first or a second for Sorsby is a little crazy because you don't know, because every year is different when it comes to football, especially when it comes to football and college sports. Every year is different. You do not know where these prospects are going to land, where these prospects are going to, how they're going to look the very next year. You know, Next year is supposed to be a very good draft class. Problem is, that could change. Like that's something that can happen. So with Sorsby, if he were to play this year, would he have been pretty good against better competition? Um, or yeah, against better competition at Texas Tech. Who knows? Now that's a mystery. Now sort of uh that's sort of the riddle that everyone is going to have to solve, and a riddle that people are going to have to sort of think about when they're putting their pick into Brendon Sorsby. Another thing that people are going to have to be concerned about is this whole gambling thing that's going on. As you all may know, the NCAA and the NFL and kind of every sports league cracks down heavy on gambling. The players who gamble, you they lay down the hammer against those accusations. They take those accusations very, very, very seriously. I mean, it's really bad. Um, so if you do, let's just say Sorsby does sign on to be in the supplemental draft, and the Jets pick him up for a third rounder, like I would suggest. The NFL could definitely come up to the Jets and say, we are going to we are going to suspend Brendon Sorsby for the whole year because the whole gambling thing needs to be punished. We need to protect the integrity of our game. So that is something you need to think about as well because the quarterback you might get, you might still need to wait a year from now to to wait for him if the NFL wants to lay down the hammer on him. So it's not that easy to bring him in and be like, oh, you know, everything is solved. We got our quarterback for the future. No, that's not necessarily. We're not fully out of the woods yet. If we get Brandon Sorsby, the NFL again could still lay down the hammer on the guy and say, hey, no, you're not going to play this year. You're going to have to wait a year because the gambling thing needs to be punished. So, I mean, it's just something that I mean, it's something that needs to be thought about if the Jets really want to make this jump. Again, this quarterback room doesn't look that appealing, especially with Tyrod Taylor confirmed not to be coming back to the New York Jets. He's now signing with the Green Bay Packers. So now this is a whole ordeal about who the heck is the quarterback two going to be. So and now this whole Brendon Sorsby conversation started, and it's starting to heat up because of whether the Jets are going to deal with quarterback two. So there are other options out there like Cooper Rush. You know, like Cooper Rush. I mean, he's a decent option. You can trade for options if you want. I mean, yeah, there are definitely options out there at the backup quarterback position, but it's a will wait and see type of thing. But back to Brandon Sorsby real quick. Um, he could still. I mean, it's not a guarantee that he's going to be in the supplemental draft. That's another thing that's not a guarantee. He could still be like, hey, we're going to sue the NCAA or we're going to go to court with the NCAA. We're going to try to fight to get my suspension dubbed down a little bit to like 4 games, and then I'll get to play football at Texas Tech, which doesn't sound realistic, but it could be something that Brandon Sorsby takes action at and tries to do. But at the same time, it's not going to be easy for him if he does take that action. So that's why people are saying, you know, it would be easier to just rip the band-aid off and just sign on to the supplemental draft and just call it quits for your college football career because, you know, the NCAA, they're even more brutal than the NFL when it comes to gambling. They're even more brutal. They completely destroy your whole eligibility. Um, they get rid of your whole eligibility. It's all gone. If you're caught gambling. So they don't even just suspend you for a year. They suspend you for life. Like you are gone from the NCAA. You are not allowed to play any college football at that point. So they are brutal when it comes to gambling. But the reason why I would say like the NFL would suspend Sorsby maximum for a year was look at Calvin Ridley. People don't remember Calvin Ridley's whole gambling thing, but a couple years ago, Calvin Ridley had this whole gambling thing going on. He got caught and was suspended for a whole year. Suspended for a whole year. He could not. It wasn't like an 8-game suspension or a 7-game. It was a whole year. He could not play football for a whole year. Granted, I mean it wasn't crazy compared to the NCAA where they're just gonna not allow you to play any more football anymore. But it was a big enough punishment for it to be like, whoa, like okay, like he's not allowed to play for the whole year. I guess he's done. Like so, if the Jets want to entertain this, they're gonna have to think about the possibility of Sorsby not being available the year that they get him. That is something that needs to be a thought in the back of Darren Muji and Aaron Glenn's mind if they're gonna try and do this decision. But honestly, I don't think the Jets are going to do it. Um, I think if they're going to get a quarterback too, they're most likely they're most likely going to try to get Cooper Rush, or by shocking everyone, they're not going to do anything, and they're going to just say, "Hey, Cade Klubnik's our quarterback too. We're going to try to see what he has in the tank." And yeah, so I mean, again, it's entirely up to Darren Muji and Aaron Glenn if they want to jump on this, if they want to pounce on this. But I do think there is a lot of risk involved, um, especially um, with if the price became higher than a third round pick. I think there would be a lot of things to sacrifice. If the Jets sacrifice a second round pick or a first round pick for this guy, I mean, at that point, you know, you're sacrificing a very high sort of resource to help rebuild the team for a player that's not going to be playing for you this year. Like, you're gaining nothing this year by doing that. Yeah, you might get a quarterback, and, I know the thought process is we need to get a quarterback by any means necessary. If there's any quarterback that's good enough to be the franchise quarterback, we need to get him by any means necessary. But when it comes to sacrificing key assets, that's where it gets too much for me. A third round pick is as high as I can go, honestly, and as high as I can sacrifice. But I do not think the Jets are going to do it. Um, I do think they might possibly roll with K. Klubnik, or they might sign a Cooper Rush. They might do multiple things with their quarterback room in the coming weeks. So we don't know, but I just don't think the Jets are going to take the gamble. I think it's too big of a gamble for them to jump on. If they can sacrifice a third round pick, I think they would be up for it. But at the same time, you're sacrificing a third round pick who's to a to a guy that's not going to be here this year. Most likely not going to be here this year because of suspension, and you're going to get your first round quarterback next year most likely. So either way, you just burnt a third round pick on quarterback that's not going to get the chance to be your quarterback. So that's another thing that needs to go into this. But like I think teams like the Steelers should definitely entertain this. Because like what's the plan after Aaron Rodgers, Drew Aller, um, Will Howard? I mean, it's like that's a team I would picture. I could picture and definitely see them going that route of gambling, no pun intended, gambling on Sorsby and saying, hey, let's just dump a second rounder on him. Let's dump a second rounder on this guy. I can definitely see the Pittsburgh Steelers trying that. But the Jets, I feel like you just need players, and I feel like sacrificing a major pick for a player that's not gonna be with you the season that you get him, and the next year he might not even be the starter because you might be picking the guy anyway in the first round. I don't know. I feel like that's a high risk to put in. But yeah, those are my thoughts on the whole Brendon Sorsby situation. And if the Jets should, you know, honestly take the chance on him. But if you agree with me, disagree with me, be sure to leave a comment down below. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe on my channel. And thank you very much. And go Jets.